Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now.
The founder of NAMZ Custom Cycle Products, Jeff Zielinsky, has built a name for himself by solving one of the biggest headaches in custom motorcycle building: wiring, making custom builds cleaner, smarter, and easier to complete. Jeff shares how NAMZ started, the challenges of innovating in an often overlooked area of bike building, and how his products have become must-haves for both builders and riders across the country. Let's plug in with Jeff Zielinsky.
Everybody has their own unique style, and that's hard for people. Some people get stuck, and they're almost tunnel vision. And I like to always break that mold all the time, no matter what it is, because I don't think that's helpful in the creative process. I think you need to go outside those boundaries.
One Gang Worldwide podcast, brought to you by Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping. Since 1978, Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping has been the trusted name in transporting motorcycles safely across the country. With custom designed pallets and air ride trailers, your bike is secure and protected every step of the way. By choosing Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping, you're supporting a dedicated small business that prioritizes quality and customer satisfaction. Ship with a peace of mind, knowing your motorcycle is in expert hands. Visit keyboardmotorcycleshipping.com for more information. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
What's up, One Gang? We've got a great show for you guys today. We've got Jeff Zielinsky, President and CEO of NAMZ Custom Cycle Products. Jeff, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you. Can't wait to hear your story, brother.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Nice. Jeff, thanks for joining us. So let's start at the beginning. What kind of kid were you like? Where'd you grow up? What kind of early interests did you have? Tell us about young Jeff.
Well, that's a loaded question for sure. And I think if you were to talk to my mom or my wife about what kind of kid I was, you'd get a whole different story. But I think for the most part, they'd both agree I was a complete pain in the ass. I had a lot of energy. I didn't take one answer for like the final answer. I always explored. So I definitely pushed the envelope, so to speak. And I was not a good student at all. So I was more of a visual learner and a hands-on learner, not a, you give me a book and 2 seconds later I was staring outside. So
kinesthetic learner. I was too. So you said your wife, is your wife just taking this information from your mom and hearing the stories, or did your wife know you when you were younger?
No, I was married at an early age and then unfortunately got divorced. But then a few years later met my current wife, and she knows I'm a pain in the ass still, and she hears the stories from my brothers and my mom and dad. So, and most of my friends, they'll tell you I'm very, very particular, to say the least.
Jeff, where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Right outside the city, not far.
Yes, sir.
Like 12 miles or so, and in the suburbs, and grew up going to a Catholic school in the beginning, and then I had some trouble with school in 5th grade and had to repeat, so then I went to public school after that.
Gotcha. Hey, was there moments or influences growing up that kind of lit the fuse for working with your hands, messing around with motorcycles? Were there moments that you can remember or recall?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's come up before, and I had some really, really inspirational people that were in my life, friends, and some of them have passed away, which makes it difficult. But the biggest influence and hero in my life is my dad, and I'm very fortunate to still have him in my life, and both my mom as well. And my dad was a jack of all trades, and he was probably a master of all of them.
Nice.
Dang.
Nice.
He was all.
What did he do?
So
Unicorn.
He grew up really poor, and so he's very conservative, to say the least. And he was going to work in the factory like his dad did, like my grandfather. And he had a shop teacher, I guess, tell him, and high school to say, hey, you can do whatever you want. And my dad didn't know that. So he started messing around with electric and became an electrician. And
Gotcha.
that's kind of what he did. And then he kind of evolved into like, I guess, facilities management. He was like in charge of big, facilities and locations and stuff, and did the safety, did the maintenance. He was controlling everything from the operations of the business, so to speak. So
Gotcha. So when is that kind of going back? I mean, we're gonna kind of touch on what you did before you started your company, but is that kind of what lit the match in regarding to the electrical side of your life, where him becoming
that was definitely the electrical start of my life, because I was surrounded by it. Like, I would go on Saturdays when I was in middle school with my dad. He had a little moonlighting job, and he fixed industrial equipment, and I would learn about the size of the wrenches and the screws and nuts and bolts, and he, I would remember he would say, hey, can you grab me a 1024 bolt?
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you know that's 1024 or, a quarter 20 or, quarter 28, whatever. Like, and I'm like, and I was fascinated by that. So I'm like, someday I want to learn that. And
right.
the issue is, being at an early age, you kind of want to learn it by tomorrow, and it takes time. It's like wisdom. It just evolves. So that was my big inspiration for hands-on and electrical. Plus I have two older brothers that were both electricians. So it was
Gotcha.
all around me. I liked
Gotcha.
electronics though. So my electronics background started in middle school, where there was an electronics store that was near me, and they had like a sidewalk sale. And it was when the Sony Discman was out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So it had the strap you put it over your shoulder, and you can carry a Discman, and you were a big simp when
you were
had
a cool
that.
kid.
You were the shit, man.
Right. It wasn't a cassette, it wasn't just a radio, it was a CD. The issue is it was broken. So it was like an open box buy, and I took it home. I got it for like $50. And the guy's like, why are you buying this thing? You'll never fix it. Well, I fixed it. And all it was is the earphone jack broke off the circuit board. And when I looked at it, I'm like, I can fix that. So I scraped off the conformal coat on the board and ran jumper wires across the 3 copper connections, and it was fixed.
That had to felt so good.
Come on, dude. I mean, I had a Discman, man.
Dude, how old are you at this point?
I was probably in 9th grade.
Okay. Very cool, man.
Or 8th grade. 8th or 9th grade. Yeah. I think it was 9th grade. I think I just started in senior high, because senior high was 9 through 12. So, it was early. It was 84, 85. Okay. So
how old are you?
I'll be 54.
Yeah, I'm 54. So we're made. I'm a little older.
But that's kind of what got it all started for me. At least electronics. But I was into motorcycles even before that. In the middle school, I had dirt bikes. So
you did. What was your first bike? Do you remember?
XR75.
Killer.
Honda XR75.
Killer.
Yeah. I think I was in 6th grade or 7th grade when I had that. And my parents didn't know. That was the thing. My brothers and I weren't allowed to have motorcycles. And, we didn't have a lot of money. We grew up middle to a little below middle class. Yeah. So I was working a lot. I was cutting grass, detailing cars, whatever,
Hustling, yeah.
Yeah, shoveling shit.
Would you keep the bike at the house or your friends?
That too.
At a friend's house.
I did the same exact thing, dude. Same exact. My parents wouldn't let me have one. I kept it at my buddy
I don't know
Richie's
if you realize
house.
that, but in 2007, I was asked to write a book for Wolfgang Publications about electrical wiring. So I thought
we're going to get into that
career, and I did it. And in the preface of the book, I basically said, unbeknownst to my mom and dad, I had motorcycles way before you thought, but I made a career out of it. So I think I've been forgiven.
That's killing. Yeah. Man. Good story. Good story.
What's up, One Gang? I used to think that if I spent big money on riding gear with a logo on the back, I was getting top quality. I gave leather up a shot. I wasn't sure at first, could I really get quality gear without spending a fortune? But after putting tens of thousands of miles on their jackets and vests, I had my answer. No busted zippers, no loose stitching, just solid, well-made gear that lasts. Leather Up carries trusted brands like Milwaukee Leather, Hot Leathers, and more, with gear for every rider and every budget. Plus, their customer service actually cares and picks up the phone, something rare these days. So do yourself a favor, check out leatherup.com. Whether you need jackets, vests, chaps, boots, helmets, or luggage, they've got you covered. And because you're part of the One Gang Worldwide family, use code CW20 at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Stop overpaying, gear up with Leather Up, and see the difference yourself.
Fast forward a little bit, and
Sure.
so pre NAMZ, before the world of NAMZ, the wiring world, what were you doing? Did you have any jobs or side hustles that laid the foundation for what you'd become?
Yeah, so I think it was like my sophomore year in high school. I started doing car stereo. I think my first car
Yes,
stereo I
me too.
installed, I was in middle school. It
Me
was in a
too, man.
Volkswagen Beetle for a friend of mine's mom. She was a single
Nice.
mom, and I said, "Hey, I can do that." And I don't know why I said that, because I had no idea. But when you're mechanically inclined, you can pretty much do
You want
anything.
to figure it out.
More into it, you know?
Yeah.
So I did, and I kind of grew an affinity for it. So I started doing it and started doing amps, and I became friendly with a guy in the city who got me amps cheap, and it just evolved from there. And then I guess, NAMZ started in 99, so I graduated 89. So you figure right out of high school, I got hired to do car audio, car phone installation.
Cool.
As like my career. So I was doing that for a pretty big outfit, and got laid off a couple times because there was some early recession in the early 90s, and then was moved into home theater audio and video. So I would go to, real rich people's houses, famous people. I met Charles Barkley, but a whole bunch of people back in the day, because I was at their
Very
house
cool.
doing high-end audio installs with another guy. We had fish wires everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So that was always my thing. And got laid off from that for the second time, and then went into the wireless phone industry and was there for quite a while and did pretty well there. Met really good people. One of my mentors. And then I started NAMZ in 99 and kind of went from there.
Right.
That's
on.
kind
So
of
for
interesting.
that first car,
Oh, sorry.
for that first car, I remember I was into car stereo too, and I remember as a kid, I got chastised by my godfather for using electrical tape for the connections and the door panels. What, did you make any mistakes, or looking back, any funny kind of mishaps in that first install?
I got to be honest. I know I had butt splices, and I had a soldering iron at that time. I was soldering at a very
Nice.
early age.
Legit.
So,
Wow. That's
yeah,
awesome.
because my dad, being my hero, we drove each other nuts. We still do, actually. I'm sure he'll tell you.
It's love.
Yeah, it's still love. And he's my hero. And he always said there's only one way to do something, and that's the right way. But the difference between me and my dad is, my dad had his way, and if it wasn't that way, there was no way.
It was the wrong way, sure.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, I look at it as there's many ways to get the answer. And as long as you get the answer, they're all correct. So everybody has their own unique style, and that's hard for people. Some people get stuck, and they're almost tunnel vision. And I like to always break that mold all the time, no matter what it is, because I don't think that's helpful in the creative process. I think you need to go outside those boundaries. And I think for me, what keeps me going is I try to push myself either to be better or to be different or try something new, but yet the core of anything is your style. And my style is all about cleanliness. I want it to be really, really, really clean. So anything other than that, I'm up for it. I'll be willing to try it. Where
That's
some
good.
people are like, nope, it's got to be this way. So,
Right. Flexibility. Hey, well, listen, you kind of touched on it. You had a good gig working, and then in 99, you started NAMZ. Now, do you remember the moment that like that came to you as far as like, hey man, I'm going to start my own business? What clicked for you to go from, you were doing pretty well financially. So you took a risk at that moment in time. Do you remember that transition and why?
I do. And I had my first Harley I got in 1990, and
What was it?
I'm sorry.
Which one?
I don't remember the model. It was an Aramachi one, so it was one of the ones from Italy.
Gotcha.
It was, I remember, I think it was 150 cc. I just don't remember what I got from my buddy's dad. And I should probably back up. That was my first Harley, right? It was like a Harley, but it wasn't the Harley I wanted.
Right.
And it seemed like my life was always, because I couldn't afford it or I didn't have the resources, I got close to where I wanted to be, but I never got what I wanted, right? So that's what drove me to always pursue my dreams and work really hard to get what I want.
Right.
So my dad had a friend growing when I was little, and his son's name was Buzz, and he was a total, he was a hippie, not that guy. So my dad's friend's name was Joe. He was probably 20 years older than my dad, and his son was named Buzz, and he rode an old panhead chopper. So he would ride over to the house when Joe was at my parents' house visiting. They were having like a screwball or whatever, and Buzz pulled up one day and pulled on the backyard, like on the grass, and the grass was sacred at my house. Like my dad cut it, had to be perfect. Don't touch the grass. Don't even, don't make tracks. Don't ruin it.
Right.
You kids are always making dirt, playing with your cars, whatever.
Pesky kids.
He parked on the grass, and I was like, it was like that moment where there was a halo over my head. I was like, oh my God, listen to that thing. I'm like, my bicycle doesn't sound like that. So
right.
That was it for me. I was hooked on flat packs and headers on cars, which were my thing since I was born. And and I love that noise. So fast forward, when I had that first Harley in 90, I was like, someday I want to get a real Harley. So
sure.
95 or 96, I bought a new Sportster. And that's kind of when it all started. And I started fiddling with things, and I realized I can make the wiring look better. So in 97, 98, I started replacing the wiring the way it was and using some of the wiring that I was turned on to in the wireless phone industry. So I took it, and I remember doing an old truck with that stainless braiding that you would buy from Russell.
Right.
Yeah.
You would put it over the rubber hose, right? So I found a manufacturer that made that stuff for Russell, and I got it manufactured for me, and it was much more pliable and thinner. So the strands were super small. You could cut it with scissors. So I applied that over my jacketed wire. Then I found clear heat shrink, crystal clear heat shrink. It's PVC. It's not polyolefin like you would use today. You put that over top, and now you have a perfectly round wiring harness that looked like a clutch cable or a throttle cable or an oil line or a fuel line.
Right.
Hold on, started. So I started doing that in like 98, 90, and then 99, I was like, I'm going to develop these part numbers. I tested my fitment. I started driving to Harley dealers in the tri-state area, and I started the business.
That was cool, man.
I had 8 part numbers. That was it.
That's shit. So you walked out of a great paying job and just said, screw it, man. I'm going to try this.
No, I didn't do that. I did it on the side because I was brought up very conservative because, again, my parents.
Understand. Me too. Same with me. Yep.
So I took baby steps, right? And what had happened was I was working on my own. At that point, I had a 97 Softail Custom. So I graduated to what I really wanted, right? It was a big twin. I already cut the ears off, put a 180 tire on it.
Nice.
I did all of this Nest stuff, and I started buying a lot of stuff from Nest. And I got an email one day, and it was from Corey. So I sent him an email. I said, hey, I have a product that I think would look great in your catalog. And I didn't hear back from him right away. And I eventually heard back from him and talked to his buyer. I think it was 2000. I was into 2000 catalog.
Wow.
with NAMZ and our logo and our parts. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm like, holy crap. You know, I came up with an idea and now I'm in the NES catalog. And they were my idols because I used all their parts. I mean, their stuff was
right.
awesome, you know, and here I am this many years later, and I'm still very close with the family. And yeah, they were my first distributor. So it's still weird. It was just a double, you know,
Man, that's a great story, man. You just reached out and said, "Hey, this would look good in your catalog," and and it ended up happening. Huh? That's amazing, man. That's
I'll
cool.
never forget. I was in a 10 by 12 home office at my very first house, and I never forget emailing him and talking to him, you know, shortly thereafter, and that's how it all started. And then it was like Chrome Specialties knocked at the door, Custom Chrome and Mid USA, and
Nice,
my last
nice.
distributor, believe it or not, was Dried Specialties. Now they're my biggest customer and my primary.
Yeah, they're the biggest on the block, so they own it all.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your 8x10 office. What did those early days of NAMZ look like? What was your workspace like, and how scrappy did you have to get?
Man, it was, so I told you some things about me in particular, right? Like I'm very particular, and it started very early with NAMZ. Everything had to be done a certain way. And you know, here I am teasing my dad or fighting with my dad saying, Dad, there's many ways to get the answer of 4, not just 2 + 2. And here I am doing the same thing, but there's a difference, and it's called consistency. So early on, I knew if whoever bought our part, even I only had 8 part numbers, it had to be the same every time, right? It had to be consistent. So my particular personality made the office. I had a desk with a computer, and then I had a bench, which was basically a desk with a shelf on top with our raw materials. And then I had these Tupperware bins or Rubbermaid bins I bought. And I think there was a store called Bradley's, if I wasn't mistaken. It was kind of like pre-Target, you know?
Okay.
And I bought these bins, and that's where I kept the inventory. I made a header card. I had a poly bag to put it in. I had the part number label on the back. It looked real professional. Like it would even work today. I actually have one. I thought I had it with me, but I can't find it. I do have a couple on a plaque, but so that was it. I mean, everything, we built it there. It was my buddy Brett would help me, or I would be doing it myself after work. Like I'd be working full time, come home and do it. On the weekends, I'd drive all over God's creation, New York, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, just going to places, handing up my card, you know, and that was it. I mean, it was just a tiny little office, and that was it. I never thought it would be a full-time job ever. I mean, I still can't believe it today. No way. I mean, I only had 8 part numbers, you know. I think the first year once we incorporated the name, and I never had a partner or anything, so I did everything myself. And I did it in Delaware. I incorporated in Delaware because that's what everybody does. Tax reasons.
Tax reasons, yeah.
I think the very first year we did 30 grand, or I'd say we, but I do that because I care about my employees, not because, you know, I have a partner or anything. But the first year the company did 30,000, I think, in sales. So I was like, this is crazy. I'm like, it can't be real, you know? And I realized, I think, probably a few years later, maybe even 5 years later, that it was a niche that needed to be exploited because, as you know, like you couldn't go to your local shop and buy a connector, like a replacement connector.
Right.
They weren't available in any of the catalog companies. There was no connectors available. And I remember, you know, being dirt bikes, like you couldn't go to the dirt bike shop or, you know, the Suzuki dealer and buy a replacement connector. You had to buy the whole harness.
Right.
That's how the Asians did it in the Asian market. And I was like, this is crazy. So that's what prompted me to start going down other avenues. You know, it kind of changed everything at that point.
Jeff, quick question. When you contacted Corey Ness about that one part you said would look great in your catalog, what was the first part that you created?
The very first part was the headlight harness. And the reason why I did that, there's always a method to the madness. Is I bought a billet headlight from Corey. And when I got it, it just had the H4 socket with 3 black wires coming out of it.
Right.
And I'm like, well, what the hell good is this? So, at that point I had the 97 Softail, and, it had the 97 Softail had the H4 socket with the 90-degree terminals on it. It had a white, yellow, and a black wire with a multi-lock connector.
Right.
So at that early time, I didn't realize you could de-pin both of those. You know what I mean? I figured you could, but I didn't really do much into it. And I'm like, what if we made our own harness? And, we did it with the stainless braiding, and I put those connectors on, and you should sell it plug and play. So I said, this is bizarre. So when I called Corey about our products, and I was like, you should sell your stuff plug and play. And I remember he didn't want anything to do with it. Like, he was like, no, I don't. It wasn't his thing. He's designing parts and all that stuff. And I'm like, plug and play is the way to go. Like, I'm an end user. I'm no dummy. I have really nice tools. Now, granted, I wasn't a master mechanic by any means. I don't build engines and all that stuff. But I'm like, plug and play isn't just to make it easier for the customer. It's also aesthetics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it prevents mistakes, and it makes it easier installation. It makes it faster installation. If you can install it faster at a shop, which you would know completely, you make more money.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my premise. Everything was, it's not just about the aesthetics, because obviously our stuff wasn't sold that way. It wasn't sold. You never saw it before, So it was twofold. And that's how I pushed it. I was like, listen, you could save time and money by doing this. And really, I won't say in our segment in the world today, right? In what we do, this is our 26th year. I won't say we invented the word plug and play, because we didn't, but I bet you we were one of the first, because there really wasn't many people doing what I'm doing at all. I mean, there was one other company, and I don't even think they're in business anymore, and they just started dabbling in wiring, even though that wasn't their forte. So we really pushed plug and play. I mean, I've had it on my business card for over 20 years. So that was
cool.
really what it was about. And that's how it all started.
I wanted to ask you too, kind of backtracking on Ben's question. One of the cool things that you briefly mentioned, and I kind of want to get a little bit into it, is the fact that, once you got the Corey-ness thing done and they accepted it, you got in your vehicle, drove around to shops all over the boroughs around your areas, knocked on doors. That's something that a lot of people don't do, because they don't it's a little bit different. We didn't have the social media back then, starting businesses. There was no way to really get outreach unless you knocked on the doors. Do you remember some of the early moments, like, as you're walking into, let's say, some of the bigger dealerships or bigger service and repair shops? What kind of stuff were you talking to them about in order to, once you left the cart, obviously, but how did you pitch them in that time and manner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember like it was yesterday, because it was super intimidating, because there was that machismo attitude from these old crusty bikers that obviously been working at a dealership, probably going home and drinking every night, not making a lot of money, being miserable, and who's this young punk kid thinks he's going to be whatever.
Right.
So I was extremely intimidated, and I think that makes me reflect back, because I think one of my strengths is that I wasn't usually easily intimidated. I was very cautious of it, and I was always cautious on my perception to make sure that I didn't come across in a negative way. But I really didn't get intimidated. Like, hey, I did my thing, man. Like, I believe in what I'm doing, I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm going to deliver. So that's really how it kind of started. And, I think I remember creating a brochure, a tri-fold brochure, which I did all the graphic arts myself, because that's something I'm really into. And
nice.
I took pictures. My dad actually helped take some of my pictures. He is a photographer. And I just went and talked. Like, half the times I was blown off. And it really wasn't until Corey picked us up and we were in that catalog that following year that it brought some validity into what I was doing.
Gotcha.
So it was definitely intimidating. And you mentioned social media. It's like there wasn't social media. And when I started this, I didn't start a business. I started with an idea. And that's something I tell young people today, like when I talk to groups and individuals, hey, don't go in and start a business plan first. That's ridiculous. You have to have an idea first, right? Because if you don't have an idea, doing the business plan is just a good exercise. But, you have to start with something that's viable. And my idea was viable. I had no loans. I had nothing. I had a credit card that my ex-wife at the time and myself shared. I had to pay the bills, and that's how it started. Like, I didn't have money to advertise. So it was tough. It was definitely tough, but you can't, I think the key is you can't get intimidated by that. And I could say I probably lost track of that, which I haven't done as much. But anytime I'm at a dealership or a shop, I go in and I talk, and half the people don't know who I am, and that's fine. I don't care, as long as our name's on the product and you're satisfied. Right. That's all I care about.
Yeah. And I like what you said, that, even though you were intimidated, you believed in your product and you believed what you were selling. And that's 99.9% of the sale right there. And when you leave there, that these guys go, yeah, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Let's get into something. There's a difference between cool stuff and building a brand. At what point did you realize NAMZ was becoming a name people knew and started trusting?
That's a real good question. I know this sounds ridiculous, and again, like kind of parlaying on what I just said, some people think I'm obnoxious, some people think I'm crazy, whatever, but I'm actually pretty humble. And deep down, I'm actually kind of shy, which people are like, you're so full of it. But I am. And I think as I get older, I get even more so, because I don't want to be the center of attention, but I do want to make everybody laugh and feel comfortable and have a good time. Because I feel if they're not, it makes me feel uncomfortable. So
for sure.
I'm definitely willing to put myself out there that way. But in regards to being a household name, and I know this may sound crazy, I still don't think we are. I know we are, but in my gut, I'm not satisfied.
Understand.
And I'm never satisfied. So that's part of my problem. It's part of something I have to work on, but
no, that's not a problem. It's you're a visionary and a realist, and you understand that things can shut the lights at a blink. So if you stop envisioning and taking your products to the next level every time without the ego part of it, but more about the business side, that's why you have the name in the industry that you do. I mean, I've been in this industry a long time. I remember you coming up, man. And when you started getting into catalogs and looking through catalogs and seeing your lighting and your harnesses and all that stuff. So, I mean, shit, you've been grinding a long time, man. Hustling, grinding, perfecting. So, kudos to you, brother. I mean, you built a hell of a name.
Thank you. And it's, I think for me, humility is super, super important, because if your ego gets in the way, you kind of lose sight of why you're doing it. I'm not necessarily doing what I'm doing because of sales. I don't like sales. Anybody that knows me, have known me for a long time, I always would say I hate salespeople because it's not genuine, right? Like, it literally, I never went to college, right? So I barely graduated high school. I mean, we didn't even touch on that. Thank God, because it's an embarrassment.
It's not an embarrassment.
No, but I'm saying if half the teachers I had are still alive, they'd be like, God, you're from that Zielinsky kid. But the bottom line is, in my high school yearbook, on my picture, I put, I hate fake people. I mean, I've been that way my whole life, where that's why I don't like salespeople. It's like when you go into a dealership, like, I was a DJ at one point in my life, and I made really good side cash doing that. And, he's like, hey, how you doing? Can I help you with something? And, hey, sure, this will look great. It's like, stop. That's more, man. That's a false facade. Just be yourself, Just be yourself. And
Agreed.
And all the mentors I've had in my life and all the really good people that I've been blessed to have, one of my good friends being Corey Ness, he's probably one of the most humble people I ever met in my life. He's pretty much quiet. You give him a couple of drinks, he'll start busting my balls. I've done him. But, I definitely envy him for how he handles himself and how he's very cool, calm, and collective. And then I have friends that are totally opposite, are just crazy and obnoxious, just like me and whatever. But I try to learn from everybody that I surround myself with, and I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
But the business, I guess once I started really getting in all the catalogs, back to what your original question is, I guess I realized that it fulfilled a niche that was previously never even on the map. So it wasn't like, okay, here's the new guy in town. It was more like, wow, this guy's showing me something I never thought was a need. Like, think about it. Like go back 25 years ago, go back 22 years ago. Could you pull up a catalog and buy Deutsch connectors? No. Could you buy multi-lock connectors? No. Could you buy a replacement handlebar switch wiring harness? No. Could you buy a headlight harness? No. You couldn't do any of that stuff because nobody did it.
That's right.
So the only thing I put a feather in my cap, and someday if I ever get in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame or whatever, that kind of stuff, if that ever happens, like what I want to be known for, or if I'm dead and gone and people say, what did I do? I brought a part of the industry that was never really part of the industry into the industry. And that's all I can say. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's just, it happened to be my wheelhouse, so it was kind of natural.
Well, it's not big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal because you're a humble person, but it is a huge deal if you think about how much easier you have made not only just the regular DIY consumer, but also the shops who are getting this stuff in and out and consistently working. How much life is easier using the parts that you sell compared to the way it used to be. Because I remember the way it used to be, and that was a pain in the ass. That was a lot of work. And, it didn't pay as well back then to the way, what we charge now, to do shit. So, man, I mean, that is a big deal.
I'd rather you say it's a big deal, and to me, I'll just stay in my lane and do my thing.
Absolutely. That's why we love you, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and the feeling's mutual. I can't be any more thrilled to be in the position that we're in, and the customers that we have and the repeat customers, and it's very humbling. That's all I can say. It's very, very humbling.
Mm-hmm. So Jeff, what's in the early days, what's one moment that nearly broke you or made you question if this whole thing would work, and how did you push through it?
So the only thing that comes to mind is probably when I was in wireless, and I was ready to leave wireless and try this full time, which was like 04, 05. So it was getting too much. I was working on bikes in my garage. I had a detached garage in my house. I was working on my bikes, customers' bikes, building bikes, and it was starting to get out of hand. And I had to go outside of my house because I didn't want people coming into my house and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I knew that it was time to try it. And it was hard because I was making decent money. Like I was in a position in the wireless industry where I started as a technician and I worked my way up into management, where I was like in a director's role, equivalency without a college degree. And I knew I couldn't go any further unless I had a college degree because it was super hyper competitive.
Absolutely.
And I kind of looked into the future, which is generally something I don't do. I kind of live for today. I mean, I save money and things like that, but I don't like to gaze into the future because it's not all in your control, right? But I remember, there was the company I was at was basically going to be sold soon. It was only a 5-year deal. And the guy who founded the company was a friend of mine, who I still talk to today. I respect very much. His name is Don Harris. And he told me when he was at Wires that he would always take care of me because he believed in me and he knew I was good at what I did. So it was coming to an end, and I was able to get a contract once he sold the business for a year, and I only had to work an hour a day, and I was making the same money, had health insurance. So I was like, listen, this is the time where I got to go start NAMZ full time. And that's what I did. So I did my hour in the morning, and then my confidant who worked with me, he reported to me, which was crazy because he's way smarter than me, is my buddy Paul, who actually runs my company today. So we've been friends for 26 years, and he basically ran the show. I left after putting in my hour, and I went to my office for NAMZ, which was tiny. It was a shithole, but it looked awesome because of my personality. I had to make it look awesome, even though it was a shithole. So I did that every day, and I just pushed. I called the catalog companies, and I had other ideas. Then I started becoming friendly with the people at the catalog companies, and they would start saying, hey, what about making this? Or what about making that? And I just started sourcing, and it literally was like that volcano we all made when we were in science class that hit vinegar and baking soda. It just started going. And at that point, I knew I was on to something. But I always kept it in perspective because I grew up very humble and conservative. So I always, one thing I can always say is, man, I don't care if you have money behind you or not, always take baby steps because you can recover faster from making a bad baby step as opposed to a giant leap.
That's right.
And I know it sounds rudimentary, but there's so many people that don't,
Hey, the truth is the truth. So, and that's what you're saying.
Hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical-grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part. Butt Buffer cushions are made right here in the U.S. for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a Butt Buffer for every rider's style. Get your Butt Buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
That's right. Let's talk about the wiring world. Most people don't really realize how much goes into, the wiring world. What's something about motorcycle wiring that you've seen change compared to when you originally started?
Wow, that's ironic. When I first started, we would buy wire and cut it by hand, and there was no logic involved. It was 12 volts, and it was 12 volts, and it was 12 volts. It just didn't change, right? A good crimp is something I was always interested in. Ben, like you said, with car stereo, you had to have good crimps, right? So that was easy. But as we grew, and I'll never forget talking with my dad, who, when he retired, he started coming to work with me every day because if he stayed at home, he'd go crazy being bored.
Right.
And my dad's in his middle to later 80s, and he still can't sit still. So he would say to me, like, oh, you don't need that. We can do that by hand. Or, you don't need that. We can. So he was too conservative, but I bought my first machine. And the machine I bought was a wire crimper stripper.
Sweet.
And it was like $4,000. And my dad's, that's so much money. What are you doing with that? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, we can make more faster. And
Mhm.
Dad didn't want to hear that. And I'm like, Dad, you're here hanging out. I'm trying to run my business. So
Right.
wire came because you're using your hands and you're employing people, I cared about people. So I always wanted to make sure that I could do the best and provide the best. But when you're just starting out, you can't afford to pay like the big box companies or the big
Mhm.
company. You can't offer a 401k and
Of course.
all this, the benefits and all that stuff. So it was slow and steady, right? With that conservative approach. But I mean, now I'm looking at that first machine. I have a little stripper that's this big. It's made by a Swiss company. All my stuff is made in Switzerland. It's the best of the best. It's all mil spec machinery.
Mhm.
And that thing was $7,000. That little tiny stripper was
Damn.
Then I have
Damn.
I have big crimping press machines that they're lead makers. They make literally, they'll take a piece of wire, cut it, strip it, put terminals on each end, or it'll even put two wires in the same terminal and make a pigtail all by itself.
cool.
It's fully
That's cool.
automated. So everything we do now is not by hand. It's all machine.
Gotcha.
We have spooling machines, crimping, tubing cutters, twisting machines, multi-conductor strippers. We have two of those giant machines. They're like giant CNC machines. They're called lead makers. We have two of those. One does Badlands pigtails all by itself,
Oh, wow.
and the other one does all of our other harnessing. And they're computer driven, 3-phase, partially air. So we use all the applicators. Like one of the other things too that's different is crimping is done by an applicator in a press, and those applicators are about $3,000 to $4,000 each for the good ones, right?
Right.
Not the Chinese knockoffs or any of that kind of stuff. And every terminal has its own applicator. So in order to crimp like a Deutsch female, you have one applicator. In order to do a Deutsch male, you have a different applicator. Well, we also have duplicates because if the machine's running Deutsch male, female, and we need to do some by hand on our crimping presses, we need two more. So I have lots and lots of money invested in just to be able to crimp mil spec quality stuff. So bottom line is what's changed from today, from yesteryear to today is you have to have perfect crimps. And do we always have a perfect crimp? No. Sometimes the machine fails. Sometimes, there's a glitch, but our failure rate is probably below 0.1%, if not more. Our machines, if it recognizes a bad crimp, like the big lead makers, it passes through an eye. If it says, nope, it fails, it chops it off and dumps everything in a recycle bin and does it again.
Yeah. That's so cool.
After we know we have almost virtually perfect crimps, when we put the harness together and we pin it out, we put in the connectors and whatnot, we also have a harness testing machine that tells us that all the wires are in the right place and we have continuity. So when you wonder why we don't have a high failure rate, there's going to be a customer that has a failure and they MF us on social media and they're calling us all the names in the book. I found out it was a bad crimp, or I found out it was this. It's one, and it's such a minute, tiny thing that happens. But unfortunately, with social media, it just opens up the door for everybody.
Of course.
They're the worst. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're the worst. You're right. That's why I spent so many hundreds of thousands of dollars on machinery to provide you, the end user, with the very best wiring product made in America that I can. Because I want to be horrible. You know what I mean?
We've talked about that before, where you get 1,000 awesome products, perfect. They would be 5-star reviews if people would leave 5-star reviews on good products, but you send 1 out of 1,000 that's bad and you're almost guaranteed to get a bad review. It's so frustrating.
Hey, listen, I get it. I mean, I sympathize. I realize it's a pain in the butt. Like, when we first did our twist grip assemblies, we had a bad batch that we found out nonchalantly. We found out, which was bizarre. It was a whole chain of events that we shipped one customer a bad batch. I forget what the percentage was, but there was a good chunk of that batch was bad. and we had some go out to drag and some other people,
Right.
and it worked, but it threw a code. It showed the cruise control light coming on, and what happened was when it was assembled, and we get them in Taiwan, we get them high. We buy thousands of them at a time.
Right.
When we
Right.
put the Hall effect sensors in there, it exposed the magnet. And what happened is when you put them in a steel handlebar, the magnet was magnetized, and that's what happened. If you took it out of the handlebar, the trouble stopped.
That's
So
right.
we knew what the problem was, and we just, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we're sorry. Here's a new one. Send us back the old one if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. Go about your day. And it was, it wasn't a problem. That's how you handle it.
That's right.
And we still got it, still got a little bit of a black eye on that. And I'm like, hey, you know what? The percentage is still so small. We sold over 11,000 of them so far. And to have, I think we're like 1.1%.
Nice.
So that's still a really small number.
So basically, moral of the story, kids, is this. If you get something faulty or something that doesn't work, call the manufacturer, talk to them, they'll replace it.
Correct.
If they don't replace it and they act like
fix it for
jerk-offs,
free.
then you can go
That's
on
when you
social
leave your
media
bad review.
and tear it up. But
Right.
I mean, this is a small business trying to do the right things, and from time to time, things will appear that may not be as they need to. But take the right approach, contact them, they'll take care of it like they always will, and then you can leave them a good review instead of just tearing into them without ever talking to the company. So
good reviews are far, like Ben, you hit the nail on the head. We rarely get any reviews. And it's tough. And I think the other part is, and I don't want to jump ahead, is like the competition now isn't really organic. It's all overseas.
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
And that's atrocious in my opinion.
Yep.
No.
Yep. And they've got all kinds of systems in place, farming bot reviews and things like that too. It's in every industry. It's crazy. So on a more exciting note, you've been called the wiring guru. How do you stay inspired with what you've built, being such a well-oiled machine? Is it innovation, bikes, people, a combination of those? What keeps you going?
That's a tougher question. We are called, like one of my friends, Jason Mook at Deadwood Custom Cycles, very good friend. He got the nickname of the Tom Brady of wiring from another friend. And being an Eagles fan, as you can see, I got my Super Bowl football up there.
Yeah.
And you're a Boston.
Congratulations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a Steelers fan, man. I grew up a diehard Steelers fan since I was a kid.
So yeah, I joke about that. I'm like, I don't want to be the best at anything I do unless it's for the customer, because that's my goal. And they keep me in business. The customers keep us in business. They afford us to have decent salaries, health insurance, 401k, all those things.
That's right.
That I couldn't afford to do in the beginning, and all those things that corporate America tries to dangle over your head like a carrot. And I think, one of the things that's important to me is when I was in corporate America, I learned how not to run my own business. I did learn some valuable lessons, but being the wiring guy, I think keeps me going is technology, bettering myself and my people. It's really important for me to develop our people. We have a manager's meeting 3 days a week at 9 a.m. and it usually lasts a half an hour to an hour. And we are always trying to do system improvements, process improvements, and people improvements. We don't want people just to get into a rut and feel that they're in a dead end job.
Right.
We want to see them grow. We
That's
want to see
cool.
them get better. And we try to promote from within as much as we can. It doesn't always work. And sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes employees make mistakes. And I think what keeps me going, though, is realizing that it's like a machine. Like a business is a machine. You need to keep feeding it. You can't just sit back and relax. I've contemplated retirement a couple times. I got to be honest, especially in the last couple of years. with just the economy and the Chinese ripoffs and
Yep.
even the industry. There's some slimy people in this industry that will
Agreed.
literally buy your part, send it over to China and buy it cheaper. And it's like, wow, that's how
sucks.
you want to live, man.
Yeah, hey, they're the
even-
ones that are gonna put their head on the fucking pillow. So
Exactly.
do your thing with that stuff. We're so pro small business USA and supporting our
Sure.
economy. How many people are working for you now? How many people employees does NAMZ have?
So at one point, believe it or not, during the COVID explosion, we were up to 31.
Wow.
Right now, we're down to 20 with a couple part-time. And part of that isn't because the economy or anything like that. It's because of a new operating system that we went to. We spent a big chunk of money in technology a few years ago. It was actually 3 years ago last month. And kind of like what Drag Specialties did with their computer system. They came out of the dark ages and we both went through it at the same time. Theirs was much bigger than ours, obviously, because they're a huge company compared to us. But we are so much more evolved because of that computer system that we were able to lay off some people. Not because I wanted to, and that was really hard, but we just didn't need them because the system did what they were doing manually, and it did it perfectly. So it got rid of redundancy. It got rid of some bad eggs that probably shouldn't have been here anyway. And what it did for us is it streamlined everything. It lowered our expenses, but it made us even more efficient. Our fill rates right now, because of that technology, are like 98, 97%, maybe even higher at times with drag. We fulfill an order within like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Man.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah,
That's
I'm all
cool.
about that. Like I want to be the best that I can be every day, and I want to learn every day. I want my people to feel the same way, and it's harder to rah the troops that way per se. But for me, what keeps me going is the betterment of myself and my company every day.
That's right. Jeff, you work with a lot of builders through the years, shops and companies. What's one project or collaboration that really stands out in your memory that you were a part of?
Man,
I know it's been a lot, so that's why it's kind of a difficult question.
yeah, I mean, in the very beginning, I made a complete bike harness. I made 2 complete bike harnesses for Dave Perowitz,
Nice.
who liked my braiding idea, and he commissioned me. It was for the biker build all. I think it was the one. It may have been the one against Yafter or the one against Billy Lane, or Billy Lane was part of it. I don't remember. And that's kind of what got me into the hamster group because I started hanging around with those guys, and I got into the hamsters in 04.
So you've been with them a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's definitely different now. Like I got in a year. It's got to be 3 years now, but it happened quickly, and it was really cool. It really helped my career in the business and all that too, with validity. But I did a lot of special projects. One project we did with Kuryakin years ago when Holger Moore was running Kuryakin. The Hypercharger, which was a great seller, as everybody knows. They made an electronic version for the newer bikes while we made the electronics for that. We designed it. My engineer designed it so that the butterflies worked for row and
wow.
Yeah. So we did that.
I remember that.
We did a project with Russell Mitchell. We're actually still
with Exile, yeah.
We still do a project with him. We make wiring harnesses. We used to. It's not as much as it used to be because of the Chinese competition. We made a lot of wiring for Paul Yaffe. We've done like pretty much anybody that was doing pre-wired handlebars,
right?
3-4 years ago, we made it.
Nice.
So, and that's worldwide. I mean, there was a handlebar manufacturer in Australia, one in New Zealand. We did some stuff for a guy in Japan. Yeah, I mean,
that's cool, man. I mean, you've been You've been through it all, man. I mean, you've been with the legends of this industry. I mean, really, in my opinion, you're part of that group. And I'm saying it not, to butter toast, but to basically say, like, all these parts manufacturers that are out there, all the well-known companies that do anything pre-wired, I mean, they've got your brand going through their products. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, you're one of the, if not the founder, or one of the two founders into that side. So man, that's awesome, man. And just a kid that just sucked at school, hated school, knew how to work with his hands, believed in himself, worked hard, kicked ass, didn't give up his vision, and dreamt big, man. And that's why I love having people like yourself on our show, because it is not only inspiring, but it's also the way to move forward in life, man. You're either stuck in the hamster wheel, or you're chasing something beyond, man. And that's what's cool to see. So that's awesome, buddy. Thanks for sharing that story.
No problem.
That's too cool. All right, so we know you're a rider too. What are you seeing now in the industry that you love, and what are some things that are making you shake your head a little bit?
Well, without alienating myself, I never got into the big wheel thing. I should say never. I only had one, and then the biggest wheel I had was a 26. I didn't love the bike, and it was cool, but it wasn't my thing. I had another one I was going to start. I had a turbo and everything, and cut the neck and got it all ready to go. And I didn't even want to move forward with it, so I sold that to a friend of mine in Florida, Corey Souza.
Corey, yeah.
And he made a killer build out of it and whatever. So I think the big wheel craze was never my thing. The new stuff I think is probably like Softails. Yeah, the new Softail, which is like a hybrid Dyna.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. There's some really interesting parts being made right now. I know, obviously one of my friends, Corey Ness, and his family, they're killing it with parts for baggers and Softails or whatnot. Codlin, Fred Codlin Designs or Codlin Designs, I should say, which is Holger Moore and Len Codlin. They're doing all kinds of cool stuff.
Very.
To throw some credit out their way. I know, Speed Dealer Frank out there, he's killing it with swing arms. And one of my buddies, in Ribaffini in Italy, he builds incredible, Italian made parts for Softails and dressers.
Mm-hmm.
Livio's a really good guy. He's been doing it a long time. He's been around, so I do use a lot of his stuff on my stuff. So baggers, I think what makes me excited is to see the small group of younger folks into pro street style hot rod bikes and FXRs. People that
is there a builder out there that you really love?
There's so many. I mean, I think one of the things now is there's so many guys that I look up to, and I'm like, man, they're producing such killer builds. And
right.
Like I'm still fascinated with the guys over at Thunder Bike in Germany. The stuff they produce is just
they're insane. They're insane.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff is just awesome. One of my heroes and a very good friend that I lost was Don Hotop. He's still one of my all-time favorite.
Legend.
I have one of his FXRs in my collection. So
nice.
Fortunate. The Shadley brothers, they're phenomenal builders. Corey Souza's a phenomenal builder. Russell Mitchell, his style is he's building a beautiful bike for Born Free. His style is awesome. I mean, Corey still produces some crazy stuff there in California. Corey Nest and Paul Yaffe. I mean, these guys they think outside the box. They don't think like you and me. They just think so much differently. And for me though, I'm still people that know me. I'm an FXR guy. I have I think I have like 7 or 8 FXRs in my collection. I actually have one that needs to be built. I have that one I'm building currently, that early Nest 7/8 chromoly FXR that I'll have in Sturgis. And I have some older pan heads and some shovel heads as well. So
Somebody.
I think the thing that I like the most is to see the diversity. I mean, I definitely like choppers and, bare bones stuff. I like people's expression, when they come up with a design idea. It's like art.
Agreed.
Yeah, it is.
Like right now, if you look at it as an artist, I'm going to be enthusiastic to see what you got. If you just bolt parts on and say, look what I did, anybody can do that.
Agreed. Yep, absolutely.
That's what keeps me excited.
Yeah, for sure. Your book, Advanced Custom Motorcycle Wiring. What made you want to share your knowledge?
We used to get a lot of tech calls, and we still do. I mean, today's world's different. I don't want to digress from your question, but when you own a business and you get tech phone calls, it's eye-opening to realize that today's customer isn't a shady tree mechanic, and it's not somebody that has any technical skill whatsoever. I mean, I'm not saying everyone. Let me rephrase that. It could be a guy that's a chef, and instead of going to his local shop down the street or dealership and buying parts and have them installed professionally, he wants to do it himself. Plug and play doesn't mean you can do it yourself. It just means we take a lot of the guesswork out of it, but you still have to know what the hell you're doing. And I think what we're noticing today is part of the death of the local shop and dealership is people think they can do everything themselves because they saw it on YouTube once.
Yeah.
I disagree, and I will always disagree. And one of the things that it's hard is I don't want to come across like if you call for technical support that, hey, I'm not going to try to help you, but I am not going to help you learn how to install this part because you don't want to pay somebody to do it who knows what they're doing.
Right.
I will make sure our part works, but I can't teach you how to fix your bike over the phone.
Right. You're not going to walk them through a full build on the thing. Of course. That's ridiculous.
And how I explain it to our people is it's hard. It's a fine line because you want to provide that service. You don't have a car that you bought from your GM dealer down the street and you go down to your local AutoZone and get a new regulator and call them and say, how do I install it?
Right.
It's the same thing. And it's the facts, that's why there's professionals, you go to a doctor to get your health in order. You go to a car mechanic to put new brakes on your car. You go to a motorcycle mechanic to install whatever on your motorcycle. So that's one thing that's important, but it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. So I apologize. I knew I was going to digress on that question, but.
There you go. So you're going into why you were getting your knowledge out there, and that's the perfect answer.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Exactly right. Absolutely.
I got it out there for those folks that were scared of electrical. And then listen, this isn't just the guy who wanted to work on their own motorcycle on the weekend. This is for shops and guys that work at dealerships. Like we get calls from Harley dealers all over the world all the time.
Really?
And they don't understand it. They're hiring their folks from MLI or whatever, any other trade school.
Fresh kids, yep.
Especially the older generation, like the guys that I looked up to for knowledge, the guys that were working on shovel heads and Evos, they don't know squat about CAN bus, right? So I think it's important to be able to say, hey, yes, everybody thinks electrical. Oh, I'm scared of that. Once you understand why it's hooked up the way it is, you'll understand how to do it yourself. And, even when I was in corporate America, for me, when I would teach people the system side of things, like when I was working there, the reason why we do it this way is because if you do it this way, here's the outcome. So we started backwards and said, okay, you're stuck with this problem and you work your way back how it got started and you deviated, at point A and you went right to C. And therefore, by the time you got to Z, you realized you never had B.
That's right.
it really brought a whole different way of thinking. So when when Tim Remus asked me to write the book, I was like, yeah, I enjoy creative writing, so I can do it. I would still do it again today. I think I've seen him like 3 times the last couple of years. I'm like, Tim, I'd read another book in a heartbeat. I enjoy it. And I did it twice. I did the first edition in 2007, and then we did a reprint and came out with it in 2013. I think we wrote 4 new paragraphs, or not paragraphs, 4 new chapters. Gotcha. If I only did 4 paragraphs, I got problems. But it was enjoyable, and it was just to show people it's not as hard as you think if you understand it. Gotcha. Like, you can't just say, okay, well, yeah, I look on the schematic and the orange wire goes from here to here. Well, why does it? And that was who I was as a little kid. When I told you in the beginning, hey, I was a pain in the ass for my dad, because my dad would say, I want you to do it this way. And I would say, well, why do you want me to do it that way? And it would frustrate him, because he didn't want to have to tell me why. He wanted me to trust his judgment. Well, he didn't realize I trust your judgment, but I want to understand why. So now,
that's how your brain works.
Right. It's so now how I can do the same thing. So I think the book, I looked at it as, hey, it could help my profession. It could help the business. It could help growth. And I really enjoyed it. Anything creative for me, whether it's graphic arts, creative writing. I did a painting class over the weekend with my wife and some friends, and we brought a bottle of wine. It was like really cool. And I painted a picture, and I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, I enjoyed it.
That's cool.
Like, anything you could be creative, I think it keeps the juices flowing,
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We had another guest on, Jason Hallman, and you reminded me of him because he applied it more so to the business and entrepreneurial world, but he called it doing the maze backwards. And that's exactly how my brain works also, but especially in electrical, seeing the diagram and understanding the full picture and being able to trace lines back I feel like you'd be blindfolded if you didn't start there. That's cool. And so you just mentioned being a little kid again, and the next question, the little kid that you were and the man that you've become now, what do you think little Jeff would think about all this? What do you think he would say to you?
He would be, he would be fulfilled. He would be so excited to see that the things that he dreamt about came true.
That's awesome.
I think for me to look back at that is, I give my dad all the credit. My mom and dad are awesome people, and I give them all the credit in the world, because my dad always said, no matter what struggles you have in life, you can overcome them, because whatever you want to do, you can do if you set your mind to it. And I use that to my advantage, and I'll never forget growing up and going down the Jersey Shore on the boardwalk and buying these posters of 2 really awesome cars. Like, I was in love with these 2 cars. And I was a car guy ever since I sat in the car seat. Like, I used to suck my thumb. I would yell out year, makes, and models of cars.
What were the posters? Which cars?
I don't want to get into that. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, I was always a car kid, and my parents thought I was like some crazy Rain Man kid, because I could look at headlights coming down at night and tell you what it is.
Yeah, and I was the same way.
That's me, and I had every Matchbox and Hot Wheel you can imagine. I had hundreds of them, if not 1,000. My allowance would buy them. But moral of the story is, I bought these posters, and I said someday, and my dad's like, yeah, sure, sure, you'll have those. Well, I've done it twice. I've had both of those cars multiple times, and I don't even know what to say. Like, my dad told me I could do it, and
you did it.
I literally took that, and as he told me it was okay, and I definitely can do it. So I'm going to do it. I mean, there's no option. I'm going to do it. And
that's right.
I did it. And I'm not bragging. I'm not patting myself on the back or anything. I'm just telling you that in today's world with broken homes and poverty and this, that, and the other thing, any kid should have that same opportunity to accomplish their dreams, but they have to start with a dream. You know, you can't be force fed. You can't make them stay in school. You have to understand why they're not learning. You have to nurture them. You have to be proud of them. And I look back at my own family and realize that my daughter was, involved with a broken home because I left her mom and got a divorce when she was 10, and it brought her and I closer together, and our relationship's really, really solid. And we talk every day. I text her every morning. I text her every night. Just to say, I'm proud of you and I love you, sleep well, all that stuff. And that's so important to have that mentorship from people that love you. And I think that's what really helps you become the better person you are when you're older.
That's right. That's a great one. That's a great one. All right. Before we get into the speed round, we'll do a last question here. And that's basically, when it's all said and done, you decide to retire, enjoy the back nine of your life away from this world of business. What do you hope people say about the legacy of NAMZ, what you brought to the motorcycle world and the type of person that you were or are?
Honestly, I don't really care. I really don't. I mean, I don't care what people think. And I learned that at an early age because I wasn't worried about my image per se. Like, I am who I am, and you either like me for who I am or you don't. And there's an ass for every seat, right?
That's right.
But I think from a business perspective, I want people to realize that we brought an area of expertise that was otherwise completely and almost 100% overlooked to the forefront, and showed people that it made a difference. And we gave customers the option to service their motorcycle the proper way.
Gotcha.
And keep it on the road. I mean,
That's right.
I would love people to remember that I made motorcycles. I was making motorcycles and designing stuff before I even started NAMZ. A lot of people, like, when they see that I build a bike here or there, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you built bikes." Building bikes before NAMZ was born. That's why I started NAMZ. So, I mean, I was putting dirt bikes together in 8th grade, 7th grade. I mean, we were taking them cylinders, bringing them down to the local shop, getting them bored out, getting Weisco pistons, putting them back together. And my dad would come out and he would look at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "No, just took it apart. It didn't run." So I figured, we fix it. So, I think I just want to be known that I was a good guy and I was fair, and I took care of our employees. I can tell you that. I mean, that's super important.
That's awesome.
We definitely take care of our people. So
awesome, man. That's great. That's great. Where can people follow you, man? Where can they find you, your company? What's the best social media outlets that you like to use, where people can kind of stay on top of this?
Well, obviously the website is NAMZ, NAMZCCP.com. That has all of our products and offerings, and all the information of all the distributors that we have all over the world. And then social media on Instagram, we're at NAMZ CCP, and then at Facebook, I think it's the same thing. And I think we're starting to do some stuff on TikTok. I said some of the videos that we're doing are going to go on TikTok. We're actually talking with a couple people about producing our own type of show like this. Some people think that my comedy side of myself, because I'm a smart ass and I'm known to be funny at times, would be good. So I don't know. I mean, who the hell knows? Everything takes time,
That's right. Oh, right. For sure. Well, that's cool, man. All right. Well, listen, you ready for the speed round?
Do it.
All right. Hey, here's the deal. You do it within the 2 minutes. Ben sends you $5,000 cash. If you don't, you send us a signed picture to Surgeon Ben from you so we can hang it in our office here.
I don't have any pictures, so you
Oh,
forget
you don't? Shit. Okay. All right. I didn't know if you had a NAMZ set up. And all right, gotcha. It's
I
all
can
right. We'll,
send you-
we'll figure something out.
I can sign our newest catalog and send you that. It's
You got it. You got a deal. That's
120 pages of necessities.
That's killer. You got it. You got that'll be perfect. All right, let's do this, man. You
Do it.
ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First question, one must-do ride on your bucket list.
Lolo Pass or Snake River near Coeur d'Alene, Washington.
Very cool. All right, wiring harness or carburetor, what's more satisfying to get perfect?
I don't mess with carburetors. I have somebody for that. My guy Mike does all that for me. I say wiring harness.
Okay.
Easy. All right. Favorite tool in your shop that's always within arm's reach?
Hammer? No.
Throw what to use?
Probably to throw. My favorite tool. Gosh, that's this is supposed to be a speed round. That's a tough one. Favorite tool.
I don't want to send you $5,000, so we gotta.
Yeah,
some
I
tough ones.
you know what? This ain't gonna be fast, but I gotta tell you, my favorite tool is a Mac flush cut cutter, like a dite, a set of dites, but it's mini and it cuts like this. So that when I pull a cable tie, I cut it exactly flush and not on an angle because I'm so anal retentive that it's got to be perfectly flush. And then I rotate the cable tie so you don't even see it anyway.
So you don't see
that's
it.
cool.
All right.
Yeah, I
That's
got
cool.
issues.
Nice.
Anybody
Cuts
that
like a
knows
claw.
me, I got
They're
issues.
good. They're good issues. They're good
Yep,
issues.
I'm like, Rain Man, definitely.
Definitely. All right, you've got a major deadline to finish today. What band are you listening to get it done in your shop?
Well, if I'm in a good mood, it'll be the Allman Brothers.
Nice.
Yes.
If I'm stressed, it'll probably be like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, something like that.
Okay.
Beautiful. Alice in Chains all day. All right, are you a morning riser or a night owl kind of guy?
Man, it seems like once I hit 50, it started going to bed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Man.
I am definitely would rather get up early than stay up late.
Right on. All right, if you could take one bike on a cross-country trip tomorrow, which would it be?
If I could only take one,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'll give you 3 answers. If it was a Harley, it would be a Road Glide. If it was an Indian, it would be a Challenger, and if it was a Victory,
Cool.
it would be a cross country.
Nice.
All comfortable,
Thorough answer.
relaxing bikes that go easy on your back.
And I've done them all.
Yeah.
So
Cool. All right, if you could have dinner with one person, past or present, who would it be?
Christopher Walken.
Nice.
Sweet.
Wow, Christopher Walken. That
No
came quick,
hesitation.
man.
That's because he's one of the best.
Because you do his impersonation for
No, I don't do it at all. I'm fascinated by him. I think the guy, I seen him on the Henry Rollins show one time, and he's
Yep.
He is. He's amazing, man.
He's the shit, man. He is as real
is.
as he is.
That's right.
One of the other people was Arlen Ness, which I've done. I've had the pleasure of having breakfast with him one time by
Cool.
accident. We knew each other, obviously, and I don't think
They
I
were
was in the
hamsters, right?
I don't even know if I was in the Hamptons yet, but he came in to this place. He just got off a flight, and I brought 2 people with me to the Cincinnati show. And Arlen, hey, Jeff, I stood up, shook his hand. He said, mind if I sit and have breakfast with you? And the 2 guys I was with were like, that's Arlen. And I'm like, he's a
Right
human
on.
being. And
Yeah.
Arlen was actually, Arlen and I talked about hot rods. the entire breakfast. We didn't talk about bikes at all. We
Ha.
talked about
That's cool.
he had a 56 Ford F100 and I had a 53. So we talked
Slick.
about that.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. That had to have been so
That was
memorable. All right, biggest pet peeve that makes you absolutely lose it.
Man. I try not to lose it at all. I think one thing that I don't like is people that don't use common sense. And I know sometimes, like if you ever talk to an engineer, they're talking like up here and you're
Absolutely.
like, hello, I don't get it,
Right.
That's one thing. But I think, like, for example, if somebody does something and they drop a piece of trash on the floor when they empty the trash and they walk
And
right
leave
by
it.
it multiple
Yeah.
times,
Don't
Yep.
even pick it up. Right.
I'm going to punch them right in the face.
Right.
And
I
then when
get
you
it.
confront the person, because I do have the balls to do that, and they lied right to your face. Oh, I didn't see it. Like,
Oh, right. Give me a break.
That's not even common sense. That's just meathead. You know what I mean? That's just a meathead to me.
yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
Hate
Mhm. All right, what builder, past or present, would you love to spend a day in the shop with?
Don Hota. I never had that ability because he passed away, but we were really close to doing it. I was talking with him. He would call just to check up on me, and
That's
we had a
awesome.
really good relationship. And I said, hey, I'll even fly you out. He goes, no, I'd love to come out. And he started getting worse and sick and stuff.
Man,
Fortunately, it didn't happen. But
that's
he
brutal.
was one of my heroes.
One of the great guys of the industry, no question.
Yeah.
Man. All right, what's the weirdest or most unexpected thing someone has asked you to wire?
A metric bike. I had a
Metric
guy.
bike.
Yeah, I had a guy with a wide tire. He had like a 240 kit on some. I don't remember the model. I think it may have been a Yamaha. And he came all the way down from Montreal.
Wow.
And he heard that we were the guys, and he spent a weekend and then flew home because I wasn't done, and then came back down to pick it up, and then drove it home. It was one of the hardest things I ever did, because I realized on the metric side, and this was probably 12 years ago, on the metric side, one side of the connectors colors don't match the other sides. And I was like,
No, thank you.
And you couldn't even get a schematic. I mean, it was in black and white. It just, and
It's a
that's a huge corporation, right? That does not care that you can't do it the right way. And to me, that just, pardon me, it was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Mind
Makes
blowing.
sense.
So besides the One Gang Worldwide podcast, of course, do you listen to any other podcasts?
I do, and shout out Jason Hallman, very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Cool.
I listened to some of the stuff that he has done. I listened to the Tech Talk podcast from Cycle Source. Jace Hudson on his.
Yep.
I'm kind of trying to think. I've done a few others, and I don't remember because I'm not a huge podcast person. But yeah, I mean, you guys all do a great job, and you have a lot of dedication and time invested into it. So it is really entertaining as well as helpful. So
Thanks, brother.
Nice. That's good to hear. Okay, if you weren't in the motorcycle world at all, what do you think you'd be doing?
I mean, in reality, I was a DJ for many years. I DJed a lot of big clubs and stuff. Like, I even did some stuff like on the radio, and my ex-wife and I, like,
Nice.
I was like backstage for Lollapalooza. I met a lot of bands. I was in a band for a long time, so that's why I did the DJ thing, because it was similar.
Right.
I probably would have pursued music because I can play a little bit of every instrument. I'm primarily a drummer. But I have a very musical family, so music is very important to me. Like, I'm listening to music every day in my life.
Nice. Favorite drummer of all time?
There's too many.
All right,
mean,
name me a couple that you love.
my idol was always Phil Collins because he had a great sound. It was weird because he's left-handed. I used to try to practice playing left-handed because it makes you a very good drummer if you can do both.
And he's an extremely underrated. He's never mentioned, but he's one of the best.
Right. I mean, obviously, John Bonham has probably invented most of the beats that are out there.
Absolutely.
Neil Peart, probably the most, the first proficient.
The technician.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Herb Alexander, who was with Primus.
Yeah.
Marco Miniman, from Germany, he was phenomenal. Buddy Rich, he never took a drum lesson. It's one thing about Buddy Rich. I never
know,
took a
that's
drum
unbelievable.
lesson. So I always played by ear. I don't know what notes I'm playing. I just I do it by ear. So yeah, drum probably music or I don't know, maybe graphic arts. Like
cool.
You go with graphic arts, like developing logos and creative like ads and things like that. Like I can definitely do all that all day.
That's cool. That's cool.
I enjoy that.
Cool. You Mike Portnoy fan at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about him. He's really talented. I know he's Dream Theater, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's really good. I don't play as much anymore. Like I started having like the last band I was in was probably I think I stopped playing about 8 years ago, and the sticks started falling out of my hands at the last set. I got arthritis in all my knuckles and stuff. And I couldn't hold on to the sticks as my fingers would swell. And I think I knew it was like time to hang it up. And, like I come from a long lineage of family member drummers. And I still have a set at home. I still play. And I wish I could be better, but I don't have the time.
I got you.
Yeah.
And
it's great. It's great you still get a chance to hammer the sticks once in a while just to blow off a little steam and have some fun.
I think I would have gotten rid of my set already if it wasn't for my wife. Sometimes we'll have a couple of drinks and she'll say, "Hey, can you go down and play a couple songs?" She enjoys that.
That's cool.
Nice.
Like my neighbor, and he doesn't know this yet. He's still a little boy. He's probably only 3. He's playing drums, and he had told me when I went over to visit my neighbor, and he's like, "I got drums," and so I brought him a whole bunch of drumsticks. And my goal is to make his day one day, and as long as I get permission from his parents, I'm going to give him my drum set.
That's really special.
That's
That's super cool.
Yeah,
I brought up Mike Portnoy. Yeah, I brought up Mike Portnoy because his endurance is absolutely absurd. You should check him out on YouTube. Some of the videos he's put out. I mean, even current day, it's ridiculous. He's a magician. All right, 2 more questions. Biggest guilty pleasure when you're not working?
Sitting on the beach in my house in Florida.
Right on. Where's your house in Florida?
Bradenton, Sarasota.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You're directly across the state from us.
from us.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean,
I missed
I
one.
can go to the beach every day and just
Good
put my
mellow out.
brothers on and
chill out, man.
you'll
That's cool. I missed one question. Being an Eagles fan, who do you hate the most? Cowboys, Giants, or Redskins?
Of course, it's the Cowboys.
Everybody hates the Cowboys. You don't even have to be.
Hey, but keep in mind, for all you Cowboy fans out there, I have
my wife's cousin.
love the guy. He's awesome. He loves the Cowboys, and
My brother.
he has an uncle in Dallas. So we, eventually we meet up down there every once in a while because I go with Rick Fairless every other year. I do an Eagles Cowboys game, and every time I go down, the Eagles get smoked. Well, this year I don't go down. We smoke them.
That's right.
And then all I can say is, you guys have 5 rings. I agree. But I don't have a Betamax to see them anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
That's
All
funny.
right. All right. Last question. In one word, how would your closest friends describe you?
Extra, maybe special.
Extra special.
Yeah, maybe not in the same word. Yeah,
Separate.
That's
yeah, they'll. I really don't. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Well,
All right. Well, you made it.
You did it, man. Well, listen, you didn't make the 2 minutes, so Ben can't send you the money. But we would
I feel like
definitely love that
appropriate
that signed
catalog.
catalog, man. So we keep we try to put like monumental stuff from people that we've had on our show and keep just the history track of all the great people that we've had a chance to sit down and bullshit with. So it's
Well,
been,
here I'll tell you what. Before we hang up, I'll take a picture of the screen.
let's do
and
it.
then-
That would be
and
cool.
then- yeah, and then I could at least sign that and say, "Hey guys, you know." So,
All right, man. That would be killer.
all right, there you go.
All right, awesome,
Sick.
man. Yeah, for sure. We'll get that up on the wall. Hey, listen, man, Jeff, thanks, brother. Thanks for taking the time. We're big fans of yours, man. We love the way you did it, your passion, your vision, and everything else. And it stands for everything that's what's beautiful. Not only about people chasing their dreams, but the country we live in, that we get a chance to chase our fucking dreams, without any bullshit. So this is what we love, is to inspire others. So keep dreaming, man. Keep kicking ass out there, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the events coming up. And you ever come down, when you come down to Bradenton, let us know, man. We'll take a ride over, take a clip with you up there.
Sounds good. I would enjoy that, Serge. Ben, thank you very much for having me. It was my
awesome.
pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Have a great day, man.
You too, guys.
See ya, buddy.